I'm going to, yeah, okay. So this session is being streamed. Do I need this notebook? I don't need this notebook. So I'm going to close this notebook. And of course, I'm also going to be fast, right? So that we can really utilize the time we have. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the previous sessions you've had. You guys have actually learned a lot. And I think this is the last week. We are simply going to be covering deployments. And this session was meant to be deployment using Heroku. But for some reasons, we decided to show you how to use a platform called Linode. And yeah, I'm going to also close some of this tools. Sorry, I would have done this before the call. All right, also open this tool. See, change the workspace. So I've been doing a lot of things lately with some of these tools. I just have to ensure that it doesn't distract in any way. So we're going to start off. Let me zoom in, and I hope you can see this. All right, so I'm also looking at the chart. I have the chart opened in a different screen, right? So I'm going to start off by creating a new, let's navigate to Linode, linode.com. So I'm going to have this opened up right here, and also we'll create our project using the terminal. So let's move down to the desktop. CD, what's wrong with CD? Okay. Desktop. All right, so let's make a folder. We are going to do something very simple, a very simple Express app, and we're going to deploy the Express app to a Linode, what we call a Linode, right? Which is basically, a virtual machine or a virtual instance you create on Linode. So Linode is also similar to, we have a bunch of platforms that are similar to Linode. We have DigitalOcean, right? We have DigitalOcean. We have AWS Lightsail. Also the same set of features. Yeah, and you have Heroku on the side, but I think learning Linode would actually give you more edge, because you'll be able to deploy your own machine and do a bunch of configuration with the machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to sign up, right? You can sign up using your GitHub account, your custom email, or even sign up with Gmail. To make it easier for you, I'm simply going to sign up with Gmail. So I have a test Gmail that I have created, and that is what I will be using for this session. So let me grab the username and password. All right, so I think I have it right here. Okay, so I think that is the top skill universe. So I just created this especially for this session, so top skill universe. Okay. Let's put in the password. I hope that works. All right, so let's just call this top skill demo accounts. All right, so of course I expected this was going to ask me for some verification. I'm going to move this to a different screen, to put my phone number. So sorry about that. And I wanted to do everything on the call, right? So that, of course, you can see how I, follow through on the process. So yeah. Okay, so now it says something went wrong. Oh boy. Okay. Just give me a minute. I'm almost done with that. Okay, that's fine. So to avoid wasting too much time, I'm going to simply log in with my own account. But basically, you see how you visit the website linode.com, you sign up with a new account. I would have loved to switch the phone number because I think there's something wrong with verifying numbers right now on the platform. I mean, right now, because it was giving me that error. So I'm simply going to log in with my own account, and you can go ahead and create an account later today. So I think you can also create an account using GitHub. In that way, I think it will be verified automatically. I'm not sure if you have to put a phone number again, right? If you do it that way. So that is what I'll be doing right now. I'll just go ahead and log in using my GitHub account. I had to do that off the screen so that I would be in my dashboard before I bring this back here. All right, so I logged in with my GitHub account and it's currently, opening my dashboard. So let's wait for that. Okay, so basically when you create an account, this is what it looks like, right? So it's still loading because I think I have a service that I deployed here a few days ago. So this is a test service basically, right? I didn't want you to see this, but of course it's a test service and this should be down probably by tomorrow. I should shut this down probably by today or tomorrow. I should shut this down. So for now, let's just go ahead and power this off. Because I only deployed it, to show, to do a quick demo, right? So let me just shut this down for now. And then I will go ahead and create a new server or a new Linode, right? Before I do that, I would go back here and, create our project. So mkdir, let's call this QR code backend, right? So now we have QR code backend. I'm simply going to create a main.js file in there. Or let's use index.js file, and let's go ahead and open this up in VS Code. Okay. So now I have VS Code opened. Let's zoom in so that you can see this very well. Zoom in again. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and open up the terminal. Where are you? All right, so let's do everything from here. Okay, so I'm simply going to create a new Npm project, right? So Npm init-y, just to initialize that project. And next, I'm simply going to install QR code from Npm. Of course, you know how to do this, right? So you can go down to the Npm repository. So you can go down to the Npm repository and search for QR code. Some of you did that assignment that I gave you, so I believe you definitely used the library. So we have npm I QR code, and maybe we can also install UUID. Okay. So I hope this does not take any time. It's supposed to be very fast. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see how, we started together from, probably creating your first NPM project down to installing packages like this. So I believe, you've learned a few things. Next, we're going to simply install Express. So npm I Express. So that should not take long. Okay, so now that we have installed Express, the next thing I'm simply going to do is to copy and paste a very simple example. So of course, you know what this should do. I'm going to run this using NodeMon. I believe you know NodeMon. If you don't know NodeMon, you just have to install it as well as a global dependency. So when you use NodeMon, you are able to run a particular file, continuously on the background, so you can watch that file for changes. Or you can watch the project, for changes. So I'm simply going to run this file, which is the index.js, and I'm going to say nodemon index, right? So this is going to be running this specific file. We just have one route implemented here. Next, I'm going to bring in UUID equals require UUID. So I told you I'm simply going to be fast. So you see, there are some things we're not putting consideration into, like we're not importing a bunch of items here. We are definitely going to bring in, let's say, app.use, and I think I should call this, I don't know, is it express. Let's see. dot is it JSON. Please remind me if you notice I'm making a mistake here. Just try as much as possible to correct me. So I think with this we're able to accept JSON data, right? So what I'm simply going to do is we're going to send in a bunch of data and then generate a QR code from there. So our data shape, the shape of the data, is simply going to look like this. So it's going to be a UUID, right? We are not going to bring in a UUID. Basically, would add this UUID from here, but we are going to then have like name, right? Name. So the name is going to be like John Doe, for example. So all we have to send in is the name, and then we'll generate the UUID inside. So let's go ahead and do that. So yeah, on the get. So once you send that message, in here, we're simply going to do a post first, app.post. And right here, we're simply going to post, let's do, REQ, RES. Okay. And we are going to grab the body. So let's say object, for example, let's JSON objects equals request.body. Or I think maybe we can just, grab the name, right? So let's just grab the name. Okay, so we're not doing validation. As you can see, it's a good idea to do validation using Joy or AJV. I enjoy using AJV these days. You can search for that. There's a plugin or library called AJV. So I'm simply going to accept the name, and then I'm going to generate a new object. So let's say QR object, for example. And mind me, sometimes I tend to use underscore instead of the camel case. So that's a mistake. All right, so I'm going to put in the UUID, and I would say UUID.generates, I think .v4, correct? Okay, and then the name, right? So yeah, we can just add this. Of course, I think you don't necessarily need to do it this way. There are shorter ways to implement stuff like this. So let's copy this, and let's just do res.send or .json, just to ensure that this is working, right? So we grab this, and then we generate this at the end of the day. So let's save. Let's open up Postman. Maybe I should have opened this earlier enough. Right. Let me move Zoom to a different screen. Okay. All right, so this is just a dummy workspace I have created as well. I used this yesterday. So for Stripe, I'll just close this for now, create a new collection. Let's call this QR code. So let's add a new request, and I'm simply going to call this localhost. So I believe most of you have watched the video we created for Postman and the multiple sessions we had, teaching Postman. So Postman is a very important thing that you need to know as, backend engineers. There are other alternatives, of course, but Postman is, I would personally recommend Postman because it's very robust. And I believe the moment you are good with, working with Postman, you will not find it difficult to use others. So let's just, bad naming. So this should be gets. Let's call this QR code. Posts. So local hosts 3000. All right. So now there's no body. So this did not really give us the body. So let's go ahead and put select raw JSON, and then we have our name, right? So I'm simply going to put John Doe, and also this should be in a string, just like this. So when we send this is what we get, right? This is always going to change. So for now, this is what we get, but we don't want to always, use it this way. So I have a simple snippet I have copied from NPM for our QR code example. So here we go. I'm simply going to open this up in a different text editor. So let's go ahead and work with this snippet. The first thing is to bring in our QR code library, and the next thing would be to generate the QR code. So let's do it this way. I want us to generate the QR code and save it as a file, right? So that is very important. And I doubt if that example is here. So of course, I should have a snippet for that implementation somewhere in my code, somewhere in my source code library, but in my source code directory. But instead of doing it that way, let's just go down to the, let's create that together right here. So let's, yeah, so I think this should work. QR code. So this is going to take us to the repository on NPM, where you have that specific package, right? And from the list of examples, I'm very sure we should get an example for generating this QR code and saving it to file, saving it as a file. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have QR code to file, then you can add the name of that file. Okay. So what are the other features here? Data buffer from. Okay. So I think we can also append the data, right here. Yeah. So I'm not very certain, but we're simply going to use this option. I believe that should work, right? So let's go ahead and try that. Unfortunately, I don't have a QR code scanner to test that. Of course, we have some scanners online, but I'm simply going to take off the callback and the options. We don't need that. And for this other option, I don't think I need the mode or this option right here. Instead, I'm simply going to pass a string. And I believe we can also pass that object. Or you might want to stringify this, by using JSON.stringify. Yeah, I don't know. So let's say JSON.stringify. So we're simply going to test this to see if it's going to work. So the idea is we should see a file called foo.png. But if we also want to make this, better, what we can do is we can pass let UUID or let user ID equals UUID.v4, right? And then right here we pass user ID. Okay. So in here, we can also pass user ID. All we have to do is to use a template literal, just one template literal, user ID. Okay. All right. So in here, we can just pass the user ID.png, which means the PNG file is going to be the the ID, right? So let's save this. Let's save this and let's test this to see what the outcome would be. So if I run this, let's come back here. You see we have the QR code right here. Okay, so this is working. So now that you have that QR code, of course, I might want to put this around a try catch block. I'm not going to do that now. I don't want to waste our time. But that's quite straightforward, right? And the reason why I would want to do that in a real environment. I would want to do validation. I would want to ensure that I'm catching all the necessary errors and giving all the necessary feedback based on that error, right? So let me just drop a comment. Catch, try and catch the possible errors. Perform data validation. Okay. All right. So now that we have the file, the next thing I want us to do is to send out that file to Postman, right, as the response. So we are simply going to do that by, sending the paths, right? So we're simply going to use, I think we can do that with res.send file. Yeah, so let's try an example. So I have an example from here. I'm going to, let's see. Okay, so we first have to bring in the const paths equals require paths, right? So the next thing I'll do here is simply comment this out first for now, and then we'll do res.send file. Okay, let's do path.resolve. And yeah, so since we're working with the base directory, I can just run base, which is the base, and then we have the specific part. In this case, I'm simply going to reference the same item, which of course is the user ID, right? .png. So yeah, I hope this works. Let's try this. So I'm simply going to reference this again, and I'll call this user ID .png. So let's add this item, just like this. All right. So now I hope this works. Huh? Let's go ahead, send this, and let's see. So we have a problem there that that did not work. Okay. Let's try to rectify what the problem might have been. Huh? Okay, so let's see. So the server returned a malformed response. Well, okay, so I think maybe it's, let's see, app.use. Okay, app.use express.url encoded. I think that should work. Body password duplicated, provide extended option. Okay, I think I get where that is coming from too. Let's see. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to return this item, because I'm trying to really understand, you know, what I am sending out. Comments out this other item, save this, send again. Okay, so if we're having the ID, which means that is correct. If we're having this ID, it means that is correct. And if we also append the .png, it means we are right, we are correct. So I'm going to save this and you know, try this once again. So now we have the complete URL. Yeah, so we have the complete URL. So something is definitely not right here. Maybe it's because I need to, you know, add a path, right? That's my assumption. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to try this again. Let's see what we're having here. Well, okay, so I can see that this is probably as a result of the fact that we are unable to. I think I'm missing something, right? Probably the extended feature. So I'm going to check. I'm going to check to see where that problem is coming from, because this is ought to work, right? So just give me a minute. Let's see. Let's see where that is coming from. Okay, so I'm simply going to do a quick Google search right now. So I'm simply going to say res.send file. Okay, let's check out Stack Overflow. Okay, I see someone sent a message on the chat. So let's see. So can we try passing the name as the argument to send file? Do I understand that? So when you say passing the name, passing the name. Okay, so do you mean without the DI arrow? Is this what you mean? I'm going to save this and try that again. Let's see. So we still have errors, I guess. Can I take this off? How do I take this off? Console. Let's expand this. Close. Okay, so I don't think I really understand your response there. So I'm simply going to check how to pass this as a PNG. Of course, you know, we have other options to send this out using things like .pipe, but so I'm simply passing the directory with the name of the file. Okay. Okay, so I think someone is saying we can just use res.send file. Okay, let's give that a shot. Let's see what our feedback here is going to look like. So I'm going to save this and let's try this once again. So now that is an internal server error. And this must, yeah, you must specify the root. Okay, so that's okay. That's okay. I think we're not going to waste time, with this option here, but I am very sure that the problem is probably coming from the fact that, let's see, path.resolve, directory name. Okay, so the problem is probably coming from the fact that I did not, use one of these options very well, right? So what I'll just do instead is, send back a regular JSON, right? Let's send back a regular JSON. I would have really loved to fix this. I would have really loved to fix this. So let's see. So deprecated, undefined, extended. Okay. So yeah. Okay, so express.this extended through. Okay, so yeah, I think I remember. And I mean, I apologize. I've not, really used this for a very long time. So let's just go ahead and paste this in here. I think we'll stop having that specific error to start with. Let's try this once more. We're still having that error with the malformed, the server returned the malformed response. Well, yeah, so let's just skip this for now. I'm simply going to return the ID, and probably if we're done on time, we can come back and resolve this. But I'm very sure that the problem is the part. Yeah, so Neurosoft, we don't have to use the image tag that way. I don't think that's the best way to do this. Yeah. I don't think so. I mean, I get what you're trying to do, but it's better when you're returning the file from a backend. It's actually better you return the file this way, so that whoever is working on the front end can grab that file and play around with that file, or probably download that file. I mean, this is a download option basically, right? So I am very sure that. The problem is because this is unable to, I don't know why the directory name isn't working, but that's fine. That's fine. So let's go ahead and see what we have here. When you send this, it's going to return a response, with this particular item. And the next thing I would want to do is to, publish this to GitHub. So let me go ahead and open up my GitHub. So we're going to load GitHub right now. All right, so let's create a new project. Okay, and I'm going to call this Linode deployment or Node Linode deployment. All right, so Node Linode deployment. So this is a public, repository. So a simple deployment to a Linode. All right, so let's add a Git Ignore. I don't think this is necessary from here. So what I'm going to do is to create this repository. Then I'm simply going to work with the templates or the instructions here. Let's copy this, go ahead and create a new terminal tab. I'm simply going to paste this. All right. Okay, so I am also going to delete all these items for now. So let's take that off. And I'll just add the remaining set of items. So I would say, before I do that, let's go ahead and do Git Ignore. And of course, I wanted to show you, you can actually create this, when setting up the repository on GitHub, but I wanted to set this up here first. And I have to do touch.gitignore. So from this file, I'm simply going to ignore node modules, right? So that we don't have to push node modules to the repository online. So I'm simply going to say git add to add every single item I have here, git commit, added, or let's just call this initial GitHub push. Okay. So let's do git push. So we're just using the main branch, right? So we are pushing this item right now to the main branch. And I hope this item seems to be pushing our node modules. So I need to confirm this because that would be wrong. All right. So all right. So we have node modules right there. Just to be sure, I have node modules in here. So what I'm going to do, git rm, I think, am I correct? So we have, okay, git rm -r node modules, right? So git status, git add, git commits, removed node modules, and also git push. Okay, so you see that was a mistake, and ensure you take it off. Don't leave the node modules repository on your GitHub repository. Okay, so don't leave that node modules directory on your GitHub repository. So now we have this item. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to come back to Linode, and I'm going to click on create. Let's create a new Linode. So basically, this is going to create a virtual machine, right? It has a bunch of configuration. We're going to walk through those configuration steps. You can also create other things here, volume, load balancers, firewall, domain, your database. You can create a Kubernetes cluster, and you can even create a bucket, which is basically used for storage. And they have a bunch of items in the marketplace that you can just spin up with a one-click install. Okay, so someone said it should be /node. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So the mistake there was I initially pasted that item without the git ignore, remember? And it added the node modules automatically and pushed before I did the initial commit. So that was the problem, right? So yeah. So let's go ahead and create a new Linode. So we can do that from here. We can also do that from here. Okay. Yeah, so when you try to create a new Linode, of course, you see you can set this up yourself by selecting the distribution, the region, and the plan you are trying to use, or you can just spin up something automatically from the marketplace. So a bunch of things I have used or I have deployed from the marketplace would be a WordPress instance, a cPanel, a Plesk instance, and even down to some applications like accounting, Discourse, a Django server. There are so many things you can do from here. Even a Node.js server, you can actually deploy or spin up a Node.js server automatically, or even a MongoDB instance. So there are so many options. We're not really going to cover this, but of course, with time, I am going to be organizing some sessions where we deploy and play around with a bunch of services, right, from this marketplace. Let's go back to distribution. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to select Ubuntu. So let's go down to Ubuntu, and let's work with Ubuntu 20.04 with the long-term support. And we're going to select a region. I definitely love to work with Frankfurt. Yeah. So the region, the point of selecting regions to avoid any confusion here, you basically select a region that is closer to you, right? So that, of course, there are so many reasons why you should do that, but one of the reasons is, the response you get from the server, you want it to be, fast. And at the same time, you want to understand that since you are accessing this from Nigeria, or maybe because you have a bunch of people accessing this, let's say from West Africa, right? Frankfurt is definitely closer than some other regions here. Of course, we are selecting from the Europe region, so London would also be a good choice, right? And in most cases, I use Frankfurt, especially when I'm working on AWS. So I think I would go ahead and use Frankfurt for this example. So we have a bunch of plans, right? These are Linode plans. We have the dedicated plans with higher spec. You see this option is 4 GB of RAM with 2 CPU and with 80 GB of storage and 4 TB of transfer speed. We don't need something as robust as this. Remember, this is the cost per month, right? $30 per month, which is roughly $0.045 per hour. So what I'm going to use is I'll go down to the shared CPU. I would select the option with $5 with 1 GB of RAM, 1 CPU. It doesn't matter because after the example, I'm going to shut it down and I'm going to have it deleted. But basically, you have to ensure you understand the plan you're using based on what you're trying to deploy, right? So yeah, some of these options can be increased after deployment. Not every single option though, but most of it. So I'm going to label this as our project name, which is Node Linode deployment. So let's come back here. Let's select that option again. Okay, so Node Linode deployments. That's the name of that's the label we're giving to this. For the password, I'm simply going to use a simple password. So, and I'm not going to use an SSH key. In most cases, you would want to use an SSH key. We are going to have a different session where we'll really talk about some of the reasons, for more security. An SSH key is definitely recommended, but for the benefits of for the amount of time we have, let's just go ahead and work with a password. So I'm simply going to create. I'm going to use a simple password. I don't know if I can even remember this password. Come on, Mav. So let's see. All right, so I think the strength is good. Okay, so we're not going to attach a VLAN or even add-ons. We don't want backup. In a real environment, you would definitely want backups, right? You might want to set up private IPs so that when you shut this down and restart the server, the IP doesn't change if you have other services connected to that IP already. We'll talk about this, and of course, you can always explore this and come to the server with your questions, and I'll be open to answering those questions that you have. So let's go ahead and create this. So by clicking on Create Linode, this is So I think I am yet to pay up for the previous service I used. What I might have to do is probably deploy that because I don't want to be adding my credit card on this session. So let's see. Maybe I might want to. And I think one thing you might also need to remember is with the issue of payments, going on in Nigeria, you might want to use a DOM account or a dollar card, while making payments for your cloud services. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here to Linode, and I'm going to simply use this example that I already have here, right? Because if I go ahead to delete this, I think I might still want to run some tests this night, right? Yeah, so I might still want to run some tests this night, but I think we have another option. So Amaka, if you can hear me, maybe you can go ahead, pause the stream, and let's try to create a new account so we, show every single thing from, like step by step. Can we do that?
Okay, let me check if that's possible.
Is it possible? If it's not possible, please don't end it.
No, it's not possible. I'll have to end the stream.
Okay, don't end it. So let's go ahead and power on this Linode. So we'll proceed from here, right? And I hope you understand the reason why we're doing this. So I deployed this, I think that was probably 30th. I can't really, 30th or 29th of last month. And the plan was to, finish up testing today. So I would definitely have to, pay for the little the little expenses, right? Which is just going to be about 0 point something, or maybe, I don't think it should be up to $1, right? About 0 point something dollar. But, irrespective of the size, you still have to, pay up that balance once you have an outstanding payment to make. Okay. So I'm currently going to use this option, and what I would have to do is to connect to this IP, right? So I'm going to connect to this IP. All right, so let's do that. Let's do that. Give me a minute. I'm going to open this up on a separate screen just to ensure I am not exposing anything here. Just, yeah. Okay. So yeah, even though I would want to, show you how to connect to a previous option I have already deployed, I still have a feeling that it would have been better if I just, show you from scratch. So I'm trying to see on a different screen the possibility of making that payment immediately if it's not going to take my time, so just like one or 2 minutes. If it's going to take our time, then we'll proceed with, the previous example. Well, I think it's always better to, explain some of these things from scratch so people would be able to do it themselves. Of course, I've done some, basic configuration on the previous server. So yeah, let's try it. Let's try this out. Okay. Yeah, so just hang on. I'm almost done with that. Yeah, so I did not want to share that specific screen because I have my, my phone number, my address, my email, and it's definitely not a good idea to have you see those stuffs on a call like this. Yeah, so give me 1 minute. I'm almost done. All right, let's see. Okay, that's just 1 minute. So I'm trying to verify that number. So Amaka, please, I'm going to go ahead and pause my screen here so that I can verify. Yeah, so I just paused my screen so I can verify one of my my numbers. Okay, so I just received the verification code. So let me put that in. All right, so yeah, I think one more thing is my payments detail. Yeah, so these are some of the things that you must do when you create a new account, right? So you'll be asked to put in some of your payment details, your credit card, or if you're using like PayPal and those kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I definitely would have to do this, off the screen. So that is why it's taking this long. Okay, so yeah. So I'm going to resume sharing. So this is what we've been able to do. And we're currently at this stage. So I think I just need to go ahead and verify this. Yeah, just 1 minute and we will proceed. Okay, so I'm going to come back to sharing my screen, and I received an email saying that it's going to take a couple of minutes to get the account verified. We cannot wait for that, so I'm really sorry. Maybe we would have just proceeded with the previous option we had. So I'm simply going to connect to the previous option. So this is what I have here, right? This is what we had on the previous. Let's go back and log in with my GitHub account again, so we can proceed with what we had in the previous server. And of course, the problem most times is always with the Nigerian or the country's payment option. Sometimes they are glitches with the card details and all that. So we're not going to battle with that on this call. So I'm simply going to copy this IP. I'm going to connect to the IP, and of course, I'm going to connect with this, right? SSH root. So let's copy this. Of course, this is not secured as well, because sometimes, or most times, it's always preferred to change and not connect with your root account, right? So there are ways to always, customize that. And I think I need to let you know on this call, so that just in case you're trying to do something. So I'm simply going to connect with this on this server. But the thing about this server is, I think I am not just using a password. I am probably, if I'm not mistaken, I am using an SSH key for my connection, right? And because I am using an SSH key, oh, okay, it's asking me for a password. Let's see. Probably I'm just using a password. So I'm going to connect. I'm going to type in my password. Oh, fine. Okay. All right. So I'm just using the password for this as well. I am not using an SSH key. So you see, I'm going to show you how I did that connection again. All right. So basically, I just put in root, with the IP, right? I hit the enter key, and it's going to ask me for the password. So I then type in the password. You have to make sure your network connection is also good, because sometimes the delay you see coming from my end is because my network is a bit, slow. So I currently have an app I deployed here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder. So I'm simply going to create a new folder here, and I'm going to call that folder tests. Let's just call that test app. So we have test app. I'm simply going to move into that folder, test app. And what you might also want to do is clone that repository directly to the root here, if that is what you prefer. Most times I love to, arrange these stuff in folders, but you can simply use the HTTP option, right? Where you just have to copy this and then you use git clone, right? Or you can choose to use SSH or even the GitHub CLI. In most cases, I love working with the GitHub CLI, and I'm sure I have GitHub installed right here. So GitHub has this command line interface, right? And I'm sure most of you know that already. But in case you don't know, you can install the GitHub CLI and work with that. If you don't want to go through that process, then you can just work with the HTTP pool, right? So all I have to do is to say git clone. And if I say git clone and I paste in that link, it's simply going to clone that into this specific location, right? And you can see that right here, node linode deployment, right? So if I go into node linode deployment, so I have that folder opened up. All right, so I am currently inside that directory, the node linode deployment. The next thing you might want to do, if this is a new server you just created, you definitely want to install Node, and that is not difficult to do. So just let's search for Node installation. There's a way to install Node using call, I believe. All right, so we can actually download it. For those of us using Windows, you can download it from the regular option. But if we're trying to, when I mean the regular option, I mean the website, right? This is a server, so definitely you are probably in most cases going to run a Linux server. So this is what you might have to do. But I am using this option because I am currently running Ubuntu, right? Which is a Debian distribution. So I am simply going to run this, right? And when running this, you have to specify the version, the Node version that you expect to download, right? So you can simply do that by copying this, pasting it. Let me go ahead and change the version here, and I'm going to select version 16. Another thing you might also want to do is use what we call NVM, which is we don't really waste much time. But once you run this on the terminal, you just have to wait for a while, and then you can proceed to run the sudo apt get install node.js, right? So you see that if you are a Windows fan, when it comes to deploying things on a Linux machine, it's quite different. And this might, what I'm doing here might look confusing to you, but in most cases, working with most organizations or companies, this is what you might be doing. It's possible to install this on a Windows server, but trying to compare the ratio of, deployments happening with Linux as compared to Windows, I think Linux, Ubuntu, Ubuntu is a distribution of Linux, right? So Linux definitely has, I would say over 70 to 80% share when it comes to the cloud market. So let's run this. I believe I did run this earlier. So, and I think my network is probably disturbing us at this point. So my network is quite poor today. Yeah. Oh boy. All right, my network is not really stable, and that is the problem we are currently facing. Okay. All right. So I simply had to open this up in a new terminal because there was a network issue with the other terminal. So now I have Node.js installed. Remember, what you have to do is run the first option that we have here. You can always specify the version because we have multiple versions of Node, and I believe you know that already. So when you're done executing this command, this is the next command you would have to execute, right? And that is going to give you Node installed. So if you search for Node V, this is showing us that we have Node version 16, right? Based on the version we selected earlier. Okay, so now that we have this installed, we can then navigate into the Node Linode deployment directory. So now we can safely run npm install, right? Because we have Node installed already, right? So we can run npm installed, and this is automatically going to install that directory and those the packages. It's going to install those packages. So if we check now, you see we have Node modules, right? So the next thing you might want to do is run. We don't have nodemon here, right? So you just want to run node index. Okay, so when you run node index, this is currently listing on port 3000. But the problem is you can't just navigate to this except you decide to open up that port. But ideally, it's not the best thing for you to just execute via that port 3000, right? So of course we can select this, and then we can choose to configure this and expose that specific port. Which it's not necessarily the best option. Okay, so I really apologize for my network. Yeah, so definitely that is not the best option, but you can choose to expose this, especially using a command. A command that we call UF, I think it's UFW, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to show you UFW 3000. So I think it's called the firewall setting. So you can actually open that port. So you can run this sudo UFW allow that specific port. I don't think it's recommended, that you do that. But if you go ahead and do this, so I'm going to stop this right now. I am going to stop this. Let's see, why can't I stop this? Oh boy. Okay, so sorry, I had made a change today. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop this. Okay, so now I have stopped that particular server from running. If we go ahead and paste this in here, I'm trying to make you understand that, of course, this is not right, but that is possible. You can actually allow incoming requests from that port. So the main question is, do you really want to do that? My answer to that would be no. You don't want to do that. But after exposing this port, I strongly believe we can go ahead and test with that specific IP. So if we check back here and we grab this IP into Postman, let's see what we are going to get if we paste this in here and change this to a GET request. So this is just giving us welcome to NGINX. Okay, so the reason why we're having this is because we've probably blocked that already. Even if we choose to try this with port 3000, it is giving us that error, I believe, because we did not run this. So let's do that and see if that is going to work. I already did some configuration with NGINX, so I'm still, oh yeah, so you see, this is actually working and we're able to get hello world. There is an NGINX configuration that I would personally love to show you and teach you. We have run out of time. I'm simply going to show you how to do that in the next session. What I did here was I simply exposed the port 3000, and then we can try our post request, given this data. We can send this, and we're of course going to get our feedback or our response from here. Now, is this what you should do in a real working environment? Of course not. You should use tools like NGINX, which is a reverse proxy in our case, or in this specific scenario, to point out every single item coming to the server, to redirect them in such a way that you send in a request through port 80, which is the default port, which means you don't have to specify any ports, right? That's the default web port. So you have to pass your items through port 80. And when it gets into your server, you will then redirect it to port 3000, right? So if we have a different session, or when we have a different session, I'm going to show you how to set up NGINX, and I'm also going to show you. I believe in that session we would have fixed the account issue. So I would show you how to use NGINX, and I would also show you how to manage your process or your processes using what we call Pm2. So the reason why you would want to use Pm2 is because you don't want a situation where you shut down this server and you can no longer access your server, because you probably have to log in and start your server again, which is not making much sense, right? So Pm2 is what you will then use to manage the instance, right? I have Pm2 installed right now, and it's as simple as just saying Pm2 starts. So you can actually start that specific I can decide to run just that file basically. So I can say start index, and I think that should work with a name. So I can call this, I have a wrong spelling there, with a name, and I can give this name probably just test app, right? So test app. So if I run this, you see I have test app. This is the previous app I was running using a Pm2, but now you can see I have test app, right? So we can always restart by simply saying Pm2 restart test app, right? So we can, and the thing is, we can even set this up in such a way that if we shut down this server and restart this server, nothing would happen to our running process. It would spin up automatically, right? And we can use Pm2 to basically manage the process. We can use Pm2 to manage the process. We can use Pm2 to monitor what is going on in our app. If we have maybe some sort of login implementation, we can also use Pm2 to check our log, right? So you see, you can see the log for this specific application running on port 1337, and you can see the log for this specific one we just ran now, running on port 3000. So this is the log for the previous item that is currently running, right? And then this is the log for the new item. How are you sure that this log is really from a server that is running? If I choose to, do a simple test from here, you would of course confirm that Pm2 is simply managing that log. So if I visit a platform called upages/admin, you are definitely going to see some logging happening here, right? The login you're seeing here is coming from this particular URL that I just opened, because that is the test URL for the application that we're working on, right? So you see, you have those logs, loading up, and based on what you are, trying to do, or you're trying to achieve, the log is just there to show you those details, right? And there are multiple ways to use PM2. So in the next session, I'll definitely go through, the installation, the setup, the management. We'll go through those items in detail, right? So that is basically how you, deploy a simple web application, on an Ubuntu machine. Hopefully, we'll talk about more details on this. If you have any question, I know you would have a lot of questions, but probably some things confused you here. You can definitely ask. Yeah, but if you don't have any question, we'll definitely go around, setting this up again from scratch with a new Linode account. Try as much as possible to create a Linode account if you can. I believe there's an issue with, verifying local, or I would say Nigerian phone numbers. So when I mean local, I mean, numbers based, Nigerian numbers, right? So if it doesn't work for you, maybe you can just be patient and wait till tomorrow or some other time. But I think it might work for you. Yeah, so I think that's all. So go ahead and ask your questions if you have any. And in the next session, or if you, if you can resolve this, check it out, try to resolve it. PM2 is used to manage. So I see there's a question from Mohammed. You said PM2 is used to manage processes. Please, what do you mean by processes? Oh, okay. So when I say processes, I'm actually referring to the node process that you're currently running, right? So you basically use PM2 to manage running processes for your Node application, or even your Python application. It also works for Python, right? So I use it for both Python and Node. And instead of running or executing that command with just Node index.js, I use PM2, because then I can, manage my logs, I can perform several operations, I can scale the amount of memory that particular application is using, right? So what I would advise you do is visit PM2. Okay, so visit the PM2 website. I even currently use a PM2 dashboard, so PM2 basically has a dashboard that you can use to monitor what is happening on your server without accessing or opening the server, right? This is basically one of the, ways you would want to deploy simple applications. If you are working on something very complex, of course, PM2 can actually manage things at a very large scale if you really learn how to do that. If I go to the documentation right here, you see that PM2 is a daemon process manager that would help you manage and keep your applications online. And this is what you will use in most, most production applications, right? So you use this to start your application. You can start, you can stop your application. You can use this for exposing metrics, monitoring. You can even add some integration with Docker or Auto Docker. Yeah, so you can check it out. Check out the website, pm2.keymetrics.io. So just check out the website and you would understand that better. But yeah, during the project phase, we're definitely going to deploy the backend. We're going to manage the backend using PM2. And of course, you would have more hands-on experience with it. Okay. So yeah, try to make sure you practice as much as possible, because when you don't practice, you make silly mistakes like myself. And if you can go ahead and resolve this, check out why this is not working. It looks to me like a very silly mistake I am making somewhere. I'm not very sure where that mistake is coming from, but obviously .png. Yeah, so I think that will be all for now. I think I was getting that error because I deleted the node modules directory. So please, thank you very much. And if you have more questions, of course, you can always drop your questions in the server. Amaka, I think that's all from me. So we are good to end the session. Sorry, we are 14 minutes late. Yeah.
Right, that's fine. So thank you so much, Marvelous, for this session. Thank you guys for being on this call.